Welcome to the Empowerment Hour podcast, your digital global classroom where women of all backgrounds, ages, and career levels tune in for their weekly dose of inspiration and motivation. I am Nancy Ruffin, your host and very own personal success coach. Whether it's business, family, or both, my mission is to help you discover your purpose and take inspired action so that you create a life where you feel fulfilled and empowered. If you're ready to start living on purpose, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Empowerment Hour podcast. Thank you for joining me for another week, for tuning in, and for your unwavering support. I mean, really, it's because of you that I continue to produce this show. And I'm really excited. And I'm not sure if I spoke about this on last week's episode. And if I did, I'm going to repeat it. But I just can't remember if I did or not. But the podcast has been nominated for a Tecla Award. And so that's happening in a couple of weeks. It's part of the Hispanicize event down in Miami. And I'm just super stoked, because I put so much of my heart and soul into this podcast and into the work that I do, that although I don't need the validation to know that my work is worthy, it feels really great to be acknowledged. And I say that because I know that a lot of times, and for me, whether it's this podcast or if it's, whether it's for you and it's at your job or on a project that you're working on or something where you feel like you're giving your all and you wonder whether that is being recognized and if it is being valued. And sometimes we, put so much of ourselves into our work and we wonder, if it is making a difference, if it is being impactful. And so I think in situations like this, where I am a finalist, where the podcast is a finalist for an award, it makes me feel really great because I know that the work that I'm doing is resonating with my audience. And for me, above anything else, that's really what is most important, because that is why I do the podcast. That is why I write my books. That's why I share so much of myself, because I'm really passionate about helping others, find the power within themselves to really create the lives that they want. And so I can't wait to head down to Miami. And I've been saying I'm going down there to pick up my award, because in my mind, I already feel like I've won, right? Because I'm doing work that I absolutely love. And I have an amazing audience that has been rocking with me for years. And that in itself is priceless. I can't even express how important that is. Because if it weren't for you tuning in every single week and really engaging with me and letting me know how helpful these episodes are, there would be no point for me to do this. And so I just want to thank you again for continuing to push me towards my purpose, because what I'm doing is a direct reflection of God's message and what God has planned for my life. And earlier this week, I had shared something, I believe it was on my Instagram page. It was, I think, a Throwback Thursday photo. And I've spoken about this on the podcast before, where I really got my start in, I guess, public speaking as a poet, because that I am a poet first, and I've written 3 poetry books. And when I first started sharing my voice in public, I did it on poetry stages by attending open mics and going up on the stage and reciting my poems. And so while I wasn't the strongest performance poet, what those experiences really did for me is that they allowed me to hone my voice. They allowed me to gain confidence, and they really made me comfortable standing up on stages in front of huge crowds and expressing myself. And so those experiences so many years ago were so integral to the work that I'm doing today. The fact that I can come on here every single week and speak into a microphone and speak to you without visually seeing you is a huge testament to how far God has brought me. Because as you may very well know, if you've ever had to stand up in front of a crowd and give a speech or speak, it is very nerve-wracking. But the more you do something, the more comfortable you become. And so for me, I'm at a point in my career where I am very comfortable speaking in front of large crowds, speaking in front of small crowds, but I really own my voice. And so it doesn't matter where I'm at or who is in front of me or who isn't in front of me. I have no problem speaking and really getting my thoughts out into the universe and really spreading God's message, because that's really what I believe that I am. I honestly believe that I'm God's messenger. And that's why when I post something or when I say something and people reach out to me and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really needed to hear that today. I really needed to read that today. For me, it's not coming from me. I always say that it's God using me as the vessel to deliver his message to whoever needs to hear it that day. And so when I think about the recognition that I receive for doing work that I absolutely love, it's really humbling, because when I started, this work, I didn't start it for the accolades or for the recognition. My desire has been and always will be to help others, to be in service of others. And so this is all really coming full circle for me. And I really believe that this year is going to be my breakout year. Not really sure what that means, but I feel like God is aligning so many different opportunities for me. And it's all a result of the work that I've been doing for almost the past 10 years. And when I say full circle, even from the people that I am connected with and that I'm working with at this very moment, they were connections that I made years ago as a result of stepping on those poetry stages. But what I didn't realize back then was that I had to go through this journey of mine. Right? I couldn't just immediately go from the poetry stage to putting on this podcast, to being this empowerment speaker, to really having this vision for myself to be this global, international figure that is going to be on huge public stages, really speaking God's word, right? And getting his message out there. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I never would have imagined that I would be doing what I'm doing today. It wasn't something that I ever planned on doing. But that's the funny thing about life, that sometimes we spend so much time planning and our lives turn out nothing like what we planned. And so this whole podcast thing, my desire to really get into the media, into the entertainment industry, and to be a global force and this public figure is not something that I ever dreamed of. Like, it's not something that I thought about when I was younger and said, yes, this is what I want to do. And there are people who that is their dream, that from very young, they know they want to be in the limelight. They know that they want, to have that celebrity status. They want to have that fame and that recognition. That was never my dream. And I think to a certain extent, though I do want those things now, it's not that I want it for myself, right? I want the recognition. I want to be a household name. I want to be a public figure. I want people to really know Nancy Ruffin all across the world, but not because I'm vain and because I just want or need this attention and want to be the center of attention, but because I have a really great desire to be put on the public stage so that I can tell the world just how wonderful God has been in my life, all the miracles that He has performed in my life as a result of me having faith and believing in Him, in myself, and in the power that He has bestowed upon me as a creator. And that's something that we all have. But I don't think it's something that many of us realize or even believe. And so I am that vehicle that God is going to use to touch as many people as possible so that we all can be living the lives that we deserve, so that we can tap into that personal power that we have, because we all have it. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am an expert on the Bible, but I do know that the Bible says we are made in the image of God. And so if we are made in His image, then in some respects, we are God. And if we are God, that means that we have the same God-like powers to create the lives that we want and to manifest everything that we've ever desired. And so, I think about that. And I think about, Easter just passed and the significance of that holiday and how I am making sure that my own children grow up with a very strong sense of not only who they are, but of the power that they have, because we are all powerful. And I think that what happens to us somewhere from childhood to adulthood, we tend to forget that. And I think that we forget that because we allow so many of these external factors to really change our minds about who we are and what we're capable of. And for some, unfortunately, don't have the best support systems, right? So if you're someone who is already struggling with your own value, your own self-worth, and then you have people around you that are feeding into those negative images that you're having about yourself, then you're never going to see yourself as powerful. You're always going to see yourself as less than, as not feeling like you're ever enough, like you're not measuring up, and that you're never going to reach your full potential. And so these are all things that I think to some extent we all have to unlearn once we become adults, right? And trying to get back to that place where we believe that we are all powerful takes work. But I digress. I just wanted to kind of share that. It's something for you all to think about. I actually wanted to talk briefly about Miss Cardi B, whose album just dropped yesterday. And in one day, her album went certified gold. Talk about God having a purpose for your life, right? And if you're familiar with Cardi B, then you know that she is the literal representation of the statement, started from the bottom, now we here, right? She really started at the bottom. This is a girl who grew up poor. I believe she is half Dominican, half Trinidadian, and she struggled for a great deal of her life, and she has no problem telling people who she is, where she's from, the things that she has had to do in order to survive. We know that she was a stripper at Sue's, and it's all stuff that she raps about in her music. And for a really long time, quote unquote, certain feminists used to bash Cardi because she did not fit their definition of feminism, right? Because women want to claim that they're feminist, but only if you fall under their definition of what feminism means, right? So in Cardi's case, the fact that this is a woman who owns her sexuality, who is not embarrassed or ashamed about the fact that she did work in a strip club, that she did dance for money, you know, people tend to look down on her because they look at her and be like, oh, you know, I wouldn't want my daughter to be like that. Or she's not a good role model for young women. And for me, that is not what feminism is at all. For me, feminism is intersectional. And so I think that it covers all women, regardless of what you decide to do as a career, regardless of how you decide to use your sexuality, regardless of whether you're stripping at a strip club or you're working for a Fortune 500 company and you're the CEO, right? For me, feminism includes all of that. And really what it is women owning who they are unapologetically, regardless of what society has decided that a respectable woman should be, right? A respectable woman is any woman who demands respect, regardless of what she is doing career-wise, regardless of the number of men that she's sleeping with, regardless of how she may or may not use her sexuality, right? Feminism is women being treated the same way men get treated when they're doing the same things, not having that double standard. And I think that Cardi really pissed people off because she owned who she is unapologetically. She came through and said, this is who I am, and you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like me, but I'm gonna win regardless. And that's exactly what she is doing. She is winning on her own terms, and she's proving all of the haters wrong. You know, and one thing that I really admire about her is that she knows who she is. She owns it, and she has used that authenticity to really propel her to this level of success that we're seeing. And this week, I wrote an article on medium.com. If you haven't had a chance to read it, whenever you get a few minutes, I encourage you to go on. It's medium.com /@ I am Nancy Ruffin. And I'm talking about the importance of personal branding. And that does not apply to people who are just entrepreneurs or creatives or anything like that. But it really applies to everyone, even job seekers, right? Because we live in a time where the internet is everything. And whether you believe it or not, people are Googling you. Prospective employers are Googling you before they hire you, because they want to see who you are, what you're about, how you're going to represent their organization should they hire you. And so that's why investing in your personal brand is so important nowadays, especially if you are a quote unquote entrepreneur, side hustler, creative. You really have to start thinking about what your online presence is going to look like, because that is really what is going to differentiate you from others in your industry. And, recently I was connected to someone on social media. I was following this person. I'm still following this person, but they changed their IG username, their IG handle. And so when I see this person come up on my news feed and I don't recognize the name, I'm like, who the heck is this? And when did I follow them? And what it is like a celebrity gossip site. But this person did not inform her audience that she was making this change. So now I'm confused, and I've lost some of the trust that I had in her brand, because just 2 days ago, she was a makeup artist, or at least that was what her online presence up until that point had suggested. And so when she made this change so abruptly without even informing her followers or her audience, for me, I was like, wow, she doesn't even care about the people who are following her. Right? And so that is part of branding, guys. You cannot confuse your audience. You can't just from one day to the next decide you're going to be or do something different and then not give them the common courtesy and letting them know that you're going to do that. Now, imagine if you go to McDonald's tomorrow, right? And you walk in there because you want a Big Mac. And you know that McDonald's is the only place where you can get a Big Mac. And so you want to go in there, you can eat your Big Mac. And you walk up, and to make your order. And all of a sudden they say, no, we no longer sell Big Macs. We only sell pizzas now. We're turning into a pizzeria. How would that make you feel as a customer, right? You have depended on this brand for so many years based on what they have been telling you about themselves. And then they go and they make this switch from one day to the next. And it's like, well, what about me? Like, how dare you? How dare you not at least warn me that you're no longer going to sell these Big Macs and now you're going to turn into a pizzeria, right? So that is the analogy that I want to give, because that's kind of the same thing. You can't just switch up on your customers, on your audience that way, because you're going to lose their trust and then you're going to end up losing them as potential customers and clients. So another thing that I kind of want to focus on is identifying who your customer base is, right? You have to identify your niche market. You can't be someone that's doing 10 different things, because it's like you're jack of all trades, master of none. People are not going to trust you, because it's like, well, what are you really good at? If you're doing all these different things, then you can't be great at everything, right? So it's important to identify your area of expertise. And the reason why this is so important is because you want to be that go-to person for whatever need your customers are trying to fulfill, right? Now, for me, I'm the purpose professional, right? So I'm the person that you all are going to come to if you need help trying to figure out what your purpose is, trying to figure out what direction you're supposed to be going, how you're going to tap into those things that you're most passionate about, right? But this is what I've focused all my career on. I've even written a book based on it. The things that I post, this podcast is all centered on helping women discover their purpose and really create lives where they feel fulfilled and empowered, right? So if that is what you're in the market for, I'm going to be that go-to person, right? But you don't see me doing this and also selling makeup services or selling sneakers or selling online jewelry. I have one thing, one focus. I have a specific demographic, right? And what's ironic about that is that when I initially started doing this work, my demographics were women between the ages of 35-ish and 40, 35, 45, around there, because I'm 40 years old. And so I can only talk about my own personal experiences and the things that I have gone through and help other women who are going through similar things kind of navigate through that based on my experiences. But what I've come to find out is that my demographic is a lot younger than that. My demographic starts at age 25. So I have 25-year-old women really following me and looking to me, I guess, for that guidance and that support. And what I realized was that a part of my brand also includes women who are ready to enter that next phase of their life, but are unsure what that phase may be, right? So when you think about the 25-year-old, what next phase could they potentially be getting ready to get into, right? So you figure by 25, maybe you've already graduated college, maybe you're in a serious relationship now, maybe you're thinking about getting married or you're getting married, and so you're entering a new phase in your life, a phase that I have lived through. Right? Because I got married at the age of 23. I've been with my husband for 20 years and we're both college graduates. You know, we both were really young when we got married. And so there was growing pains in that because we, in essence, were growing together. But in any case, I realized that these 25-year-old women are really looking to me to also help guide them through those specific phases in their lives, because they look at me kind of like a big sister, right? Someone who has gone through that already and someone who can help them navigate through that. So being able to identify your niche market is probably one of the most important things you can do when you're branding yourself. Also, you have to make yourself known, right? So because in order for you to be that go-to person that people want to go to, they have to know you. They have to know that that's what you're about. And so a part of that is establishing that online presence. But then another part of that is also not being shy about talking about yourself and letting people know who you are and what your value is and what you bring to the table. I think that for a lot of people, and specifically for many women, we have a really hard time talking about ourselves because we don't want to come off as too cocky or conceited or like we're bragging about ourselves. But I'm going to tell you right now that this day and age is not the time to play coy or to be shy or to kind of play the wall. If you want to succeed in this life, in this day and age, you have to be aggressive about what you want. You have to be bold about it. And you have to let people know what you want and who you are, what value you bring, and why they need you and your service. Because everyone is out here trying to make a name for themselves. And so you can't no longer sit back and wait for the opportunities to come to you. You have to be aggressive. And if there's something that you want, you have to go out there and get it. And if you can't get it, you're going to have to make it happen for yourself. In some way, somehow create that opportunity. And a part of that is also creating and establishing good connections and good relationships, because more than anything in this world, the relationships you make or don't make can help or break you. So that's something that I want you to really keep in the front of your mind. Every person that you come in contact with is a potential new connection for you. And you never know where that relationship is going to take you, because it may not be today, but you never know 5-10 years from now how that connection that you made today will be the connection that completely changes your life a few years from now. So be mindful of how you're treating people as well. Also, you have to be consistent in whatever it is that you're doing. And so if you're branding yourself as something, you have to be consistent in that branding and how you're marketing yourself and how you are teaching the public and the audience to treat you, right? You can't kind of bounce back and forth from different things, because like I said before, people will then get confused and they're not going to believe you and they're not going to trust you. So be consistent in who you are and in the products and services that you are delivering. And then I think the last thing that I want to stress about branding, because you can always, like I said, head to the website and check out my article. I have tons of stuff that I put on there. But the last thing that I kind of want to mention about that is the importance of investing in yourself. And I can't stress this enough. And I think that a lot of us, we kind of shortchange ourselves when it comes to investing in ourselves. And it's like, we'll invest in other people and in other things, and we'll give our money away. But then when it comes to investing in our own personal growth, our own personal development, we almost like second guess it, or we hesitate. And this is not the time for that. You guys really have to invest in your skills and in constantly being up to date in your industry, whatever that may be. Okay, you have to be willing to invest in yourself if you hope to make any money from your brand and want to be taken seriously. You have to invest in tools that will help increase your visibility and make your job easier. And this is like the biggest pet peeve that I have, because it really kind of grinds my gears when I see websites, and I'll give just like WordPress, for example, and it'll be nancyruffin.wordpress.com. Right now, that's a free domain, and you know it's a free domain because it's hosted by WordPress, and WordPress is in your domain name. If you want to be taken seriously as a brand and as a business person, invest in purchasing an exclusive domain name for your website that is specific to you and your brand. It's so inexpensive nowadays. Go to GoDaddy.com. I think it might be like $10. It might be $30 for the entire year. I don't really know, but it's relatively cheap, especially if you're trying to develop your brand and wanting to be taken seriously. Get an exclusive domain name so that people know that it's your brand. And then all of your social media handles should be consistent so that it's easier for people to find you across social platforms. So like for me, my handles are I am Nancy Ruffin. That's across IG, that's on Twitter, that's on Facebook. I screwed up with my Snapchat, and I don't even know what my handle is on that, but I don't use Snapchat that much. That's not one of my platforms that I use much for engagement. But the point is, you want to make it as easy as possible for people to find you and not forget you, right? Because that when you're building a brand, you want to be remembered. Also, invest in business cards, people. Business cards are so important. And I mean, they may not, others may not use them, but if you want to be taken seriously in your industry and in your business, you have to have a business card, especially when you're networking and you're building relationships. Invest in resources that will help you develop your skills. I cannot stress this enough. People are so cheap when it comes to building their skill set, not realizing that the money you're spending on those classes is an investment. Because once you learn a skill, once you gain that knowledge, you're never going to forget that. That is something that you can use to expand your business. I have over $80,000 in student loan debt, and although I have a degree in accounting and I'm not working in the capacity of an accountant, I still have those skills that are very relevant to me in business because we need to do taxes. We need to understand the difference between debits and credits, right? And so not only do I have the creative skills, but I also have the business skills. I have a master's degree in business management. And although my day job is in healthcare, a lot of the skills that I've acquired in healthcare, I use and apply with my coaching clients and in my own business, right? Because it's all about using what you have and transferring those skills and applying them to different scenarios. And I'm sure that there are skills that you have right now that you may not have even thought about that you can transfer and apply to different industries and even apply to whatever side hustle you may have right now, but you just have not thought about it. And I bet you that if you take some time to sit and think about all the things you know, you can apply those skills in some way to other things that you're doing. So take courses. If you want to be respected, as a professional, guys, you have to act and present yourself as one. The worst thing you can do is scrimp on yourself, right? You can scrimp on others, but not when it comes to your own personal growth or your own personal development. And so I think that's where I'm going to end it this week, and which is so ironic because this was not the topic that I planned to talk about this week. I really wanted to get into spring cleaning and giving you some tips on how to declutter your life. But I guess we will save that for next week. So until next time, mi gente, make sure that you are focused, you stay on track, and whatever goals you set for yourself this week, go out there and crush them. Till next time, my loves, have a great one.